Hello and welcome to my channel. Bonsoir et bienvenue sur ma chaîne. My name is Muriel and this evening I will be doing a mini review for The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Because yes, I decided to dip my toes in the Cosmere, finally, because it's such a huge thing in the fantasy community, which I only became aware of a couple of years ago, I think. And I didn't think I'd be really that interested, but then I was like, you know what, just try Mistborn. So that's what I'm doing in audiobook format. I finished The Final Empire last weekend. I will do a series review when I've finished, well, the trilogy with The Hero of Ages, but I wanted to do a mini review to record my impressions of the first installment. I don't really think I need to explain what Mistborn is about, but you know, just for the principle, The Final Empire introduces us to Vin, who is a street urchin living in the city of Luthadel, and the land in which Luthadel resides has been governed by a god emperor figure for the past 1,000 years. Society is divided into two socio-economic classes, the nobles and the scar, which are peasants, industrial workers, miners, things like that. The land is a bit weird. Ash falls out of the sky regularly. The sun is of a reddish colour. There are no flowering plants. It's a fairly dreary atmosphere, and also every night preternatural mists envelop everything. And also there's this very interesting magic system present called allomancy, which allows people to do various different things by ingesting certain kinds of metals, and of course only certain kind of people can do that. You have mistings, which can do one thing with one type of metal, and mistborns, which can use all of the allomantic metals to do various different things. And so Vin is a scar girl, and she gets recruited by a crew of thieves who want to overthrow the God Emperor figure. Now, Mistborn is an adult fantasy trilogy. I even think it could probably qualify as high fantasy, knowing what I know about some of the developments down the road in books 2 and 3. And, well, I'm just gonna list off a few points that stood out to me. Writing-wise, I don't think it's anything special, but then I do think Brandon Sanderson is known to write in a very straightforward way. He doesn't want to get too fancy with the prose so people can focus on the actual story and the characters, which is fine. That's a perfectly respectable choice. But so yeah, the writing is straightforward. Now, to me there was a certain commercial aspect to it, but please, I'm not saying that's a negative thing. I'm not trying to be all fancy and elitist by saying that. But I guess I'm used to fantasy being a bit more, florid in the descriptions and the language used, or at least I'm used to the language being more integrated with the world building. By that, I mean, for example, the word cringe is used a lot, and the expression bloody hell is used several times. I'm like, is there even a hell in the Mistborn cosmology? It felt out of place. It took me out of the story a bit, and I found that weird. The way it's written, it just doesn't correspond to my idea of adult fantasy. I come from, like A Song of Ice and Fire and Tolkien, things like that. So, yeah, I was a bit disoriented, I guess. But again, it's not in and of itself a bad thing. It does mean it, I assume, reads fairly quickly. I mean, I listened to it on audiobook, and the chapters are very short, and that's always a good thing in my book. Well, I mean, depends, but usually. So yeah, the writing is nothing special, but I guess it doesn't need to be. Character-wise, I enjoyed most of the cast of characters. Sazed, Kelsier, Vin. I do like Vin as a character. I was a bit surprised that she's 17 years old, because there's several times I'm like, you sound way younger than 17, which is weird, given that you would think, having grown up to be an extremely poor street urchin working for thieving crews and being in very difficult and dangerous situations, that would have matured her significantly, so she'd sound older than 17. So that bothered me just a bit. And also there's a romance that felt just a bit convenient, and its development wasn't organic at all, in my opinion. It felt a bit insta-lovey. And that read like YA to me in my head. Like, the rest of it to me is adult fantasy, but that bit, those dynamics were just YA-ish to me, so meh. But otherwise, Vin is an interesting character, but I mean, it's nothing that original. Like, her arc is fairly standard in fantasy terms, like a bit of a chosen one trope going on, but it's a well done chosen one trope, don't get me wrong, it's satisfactory, but yeah, I mean, I've seen that before, but we'll see how that develops in books 2 and 3, of course. World building wise, again, the little of it you get in book 1 is good, but I found glaring gaps in it, and there were just things that bugged me. Now again, perhaps this will be explained in books 2 and 3, but there are no flowers in the world of Mistborn. I'm like, if you don't have flowering plants, how are people eating fruit and eating grains? Now, if you'd stuck to the word fruit, I could imagine they were eating pine cones or something, but they have bread, so they're growing grains. How do they have grain and soft fruit without flowering plants? I know it's very nitpicky, but like, I'm a nature and biology nerd. I can't help but do that, right? That to me seemed like a glaring fault or flaw in the world building. Like, how does that work? And the plants are said to be brown. And I was legitimately trying to figure out, so wait, if the sun is red, what kind of wavelengths would the plants need to do photosynthesis? So, I mean, again, I'm willing to admit that's a me problem, but still it bugged me. I'm like, that doesn't make sense, bro. But maybe I'll get an explanation for that in book 2 and book 3. Otherwise, yeah, it's standard fantasy world building, it's fine. But where I will give Brandon Sanderson credit, and when most people give him praise, which is entirely deserved, is the magic system. Allomancy is extremely original. I've never come across anything like that before. It was cool. I'm not gonna lie. Allomancy is cool, and Furukami as well, but Allomancy is cool. The idea of ingesting metals, and then it gives you a limited, specific set of skills. Like, even the levitation thing, it's not flying as such. It's more like maglev technology in my mind. It's magnetism, basically, but repulsive and attractive magnetism, so that was very cool. But the flip side of that, unfortunately, is that it is so technical. It's such a hard magic system, almost sciencey in its description, in its specifications, that I found myself wanting more details because I was just lapping up the details he did give in the book. But then multiple questions arose in my mind. So why would the body develop a way to exploit the metal in the stomach? Because it doesn't get digested. And so I wanted more details. So in the end, I'm not sure I am a fan of super hard magic systems as a result. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that one out. It is very original, but it's so hyper-technical and developed that then I want it to be flawless. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm a perfectionist in my own mind, so I was like, I want everything to make sense for me. But again, I'm willing to admit that's largely a me problem, but yeah, I got really nitpicky. And then a note on pacing. I did think the pacing was a bit wonky. There are large stretches where things are relatively calm, it's all about planning. Vin goes to balls for intel gathering reasons and to sow, rumors to basically create chaos among the noble families. And then boom, out of nowhere, you've got these intense action sequences, which, to be fair, I had a hard time following on audio. I had to replay them like a couple of times. Perhaps it would read more easily on paper. I don't know. But I had a hard time shifting gears. So yeah, bit of a wonky pacing. Also, it's not really a comment on if Brandon Sanderson writes action sequences well or not. I think they're well written, but the thing is, it's so intense. If you couple that to the super technical aspect of allomancy, because a lot of these action scenes are linked to using allomancy, there was something almost video game-like to those scenes and to the Final Empire in general. It's very weird, and and it probably doesn't make much sense to most people, but I don't really know how else to call it. It felt video gamey to me. It gave me vibes of playing a video game where you're like going around exploring shit for like 10 hours and then you encounter like the level's boss and it's super intense and your heart races and you have to beat the boss. I don't know, it put me in mind of that, which again, weird. I've never had that reading or listening to a book before. I don't know if it was good or bad, but it was different, that's for sure. And it might indicate that Mistborn could benefit from a kick-ass video game adaptation. I don't know, that'd be neat. Especially with a magic system so well-defined like Allomancy, you could do neat things with the video game, in my opinion. I also think they would make good movies. That's also what I meant with my comment that it's commercial in a way. I think it would make a good, relatively wide appeal movie. So yeah, these are my overall thoughts about The Final Empire. It was good enough that I want to continue and finish the trilogy. I gave 7 out of 10 to The Final Empire. I don't get the hype for it. I do think it's good. I think it's great, so I'm not ready to jump on the Brandon Sanderson hype train as of yet. It's great that I can actually listen to it because I do other stuff at the same time, because I'm reading other books at the same time, so that works out fine for me. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. But now, hopefully, I will continue enjoying the series. I did read a few comments saying that The Final Empire is the best out of the 3, which is a teensy bit worrisome, but I will finish the trilogy and then report back to you. In the meantime, I hope you will have a lovely day, evening, whichever time of day you prefer, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye!